Hello, brothers. This is Justin Jones. I'm joined here with a handful of brothers. Brothers, if you would just go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hello, everybody. It's Brother Gino Scovio from the Rising Sun Lodge out in Aurora, Ontario, Canada, and also co-host of the First Three Knocks.
Hi, everybody. This is Bert Tellier, worshipful Brother Bert Tellier, no longer the immediate past master of the Rising Sun Lodge, number 129 in Aurora, Ontario, also with the First Three Knocks.
And Brother Steve Sprott here of Theredatha Lodge, number 220 in beautiful and historic Uxbridge, Ontario, and producer of the First Three Knocks.
What has brought each of you into the fraternity?
I enjoy community stuff. I enjoy kind of charitable things. I enjoy staying busy and being social. And when we first moved out to Aurora 7-8 years ago now, there was a farmer's market, and this building was open to the public on one of their kind of open events that they have annually here in the town. And I thought, wait a minute, I've heard of them Masons before. I think of them as those guys, the men in black, and know all the secrets of the world and all that, and the door's wide open. I mean, what kind of secrets are this? So that's kind of what struck my curiosity. And after a couple hours of boring my young daughter, who at the time was 8, that I had with me, promised that we'd only stay for 5 minutes. Again, 2 hours later, here we are. So that kind of got me into Masonry, kind of just being that in this town, it's such a part of the town, which I really enjoyed, because in some places it's kind of really hidden, and like here it's town park, it's right here, you can't miss it. We've got a big sign on the side, and we're very proud to always keep our door open for anybody. Actually, Bert and I kind of started a little fun thing in his year of master, keeping that door open, and the amount of people that are so curious of the craft and walk in. So that was how I kind of got introduced. I don't have any family that kind of brought me into it. As far as I know, I'm the first in my whole bloodline, going back 4 or 5 generations now, because I have looked into it. But that's it. So that's how I come to learn about this craft, and it's been a wonderful ride so far.
Yeah, mine's probably a little more traditional. You know, my grandfather was a Freemason, sort of unbeknownst to myself, and my mother had shared some of his paraphernalia that she came across sort of cleaning out the house one day, and she thought that I would want to see what it was. He had a journal, he had a Masonic Bible, and some other pins and that type of thing. And I remember just reading his journal a little bit, and I was a bit struck by how well thought out this man was. I mean, I didn't know him, of course. He passed probably after I was 2 years old, so I really didn't get to spend time knowing him. But I spent a lot of time going through some of his writings and his thinking, and it really perplexed me. You know, the way that he thought, and the way he was organized in his life, and how he treated his relationships. So it just was enough of a curiosity for me in the back of my mind, like, that Freemasonry thing's kind of interesting. And then, of course, once you've been exposed, you're seeing square and compass everywhere. You know, it's like when you're buying a new
no turning
car.
back. Yeah.
Exactly.
You see that car everywhere. And so I came across, I was living in Western Canada back then in Calgary, Alberta, and they have like an old Western town called Heritage Park, and, you know, cowboy type of town. And they had a tinsmith, and on top of the tinsmith shop was a Masonic lodge. And so I'm with my family, and I had to go up there and check it out, because I'd had enough. I had enough curiosity. I've seen this symbol and sign too many times. So I went up there and I started talking to a Freemason who was just managing kind of like I would call it a Masonic museum at an old heritage Western town. And that's how I got started into Freemasonry, unbeknownst to what I was getting into, et cetera, et cetera. I just had enough in my heart to kind of wonder what this was. And I had to find out for myself. And I'm glad I did, because it's had such a dramatic impact on me in my life.
Yeah, and just moving on to me, I guess I had a lot of intrigue since I was a young kid. I remember, I think it was 4th or 5th grade. One of my best friends, it was around Christmas time, and he said, "Hey, my dad's club is having a dinner," and he said I could bring a friend, and it's at the Masonic Lodge. And I said, "Hey, what's the Masonic Lodge?" And at that age, when he tells you, you know, it's a secret club with a secret handshake and all that, like, you know, it piques your interest when you're in 4th or 5th grade there. So I didn't end up going to the dinner for whatever reason, but I had always been intrigued with it from that point on. And you know, as Bert said, when you start, when that's, you know, in the back of your head, you start seeing the symbols everywhere. You know, the square and compass start popping up everywhere. So throughout, you know, my childhood and into my teens and young adulthood, I just always took interest in seeing that symbol everywhere. So didn't know anyone. My dad, my grandfather, was a Mason, but my dad died when my dad was about 12 years old. So never, you know, my dad didn't have much exposure, and I didn't have any exposure either. I did have my parents' friend, though, family friend, who was a Mason, and I would always see his Masonic ring all the time. And I always wanted to ask him about it, but I didn't know if I could ask, and if it was polite to ask, or, you know, if it was intrusive to ask. So I just never asked him about it. But he was over for dinner one night, and again, I think I was at an age, I was beyond the age of 21, and I thought, you know, this is of more interest to me now more than ever. And I didn't ask him about it, but when he went home that night, I would talk to my parents, and I said, you know, what's Michael's ring all about? You know, I'm really interested in that. And they couldn't really answer, but the next day I got a phone call from Michael. And up until this point, I didn't know if to my understanding was you had to be asked to be a Mason. A Mason had to approach you and ask you if you wanted to join, which was a misconception, of course. But Michael spent probably an hour on the phone with me just talking about Freemasonry, and just opened the door for me. So connected me actually to somebody in the local lodge in Uxbridge, worshipful brother, Right Worshipful Brother Don Kemble, and the rest is history from there. So it was really just the intrigue behind it at first, but you know, at the time, I wanted to go into policing, and I knew, you know, I would always hear that a lot of police officers were Masons. So of course, in my head, I associated, you know, that you know, good citizen with Masonry, and so that's what drew me to it at the time. So and yeah, here I am.
A little intrigue definitely goes a long way.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the people that I met. You know, I met 4 or 5 people at the lodge before, you know, filling out my application, and that solidified it for me. I saw the types of men they were. So
you touched on the reason that y'all created the podcast, which was going to be my next question. I was curious if anyone had anything they wanted to add to the why behind that.
Oh yeah, I'd love to hear Sprotty and Gino talk about that a little bit.
Like what Bert said, you know, I mean, when we were approached, we had some changing of the guard at our annual communique, and a new DGM going in, and we really were kind of trying to be known more in public and kind of, you know, dispel some of that misconception and such. And that was kind of the first idea that was kind of thrown our way. I mean, I think it was Bert that had said, you know, there's this app, and it's got this cool podcast, and they're out in the New England area.
Ezekiel Bates.
There you go.
You guys know Ezekiel Bates? I don't know if you remember them, but they were doing a podcast.
They were kind of like the first ones we ever came across, discovering. We're like, that's cool. And again, like I said, with the change in the guard that we were having here at the time, we were very much kind of like asked, or not even asked, but just, hey, run with it. Like if you want to put it out there. So it was cool to have kind of a couple brothers come together that were collectively kind of thinking on the same page, in the sense of how can we bring Masonry to your household and share kind of the great things that do come with it. I mean, it's about building a better man. It's about, you know, just doing better in your day to day, and that equates into taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, helping your neighbor, being a good you know, citizen of your community and such. So that was kind of, I think, for me, when Bert kind of threw that at us, I was like, oh, that's so cool. Definitely, we got to look into this. And then I'm sure Sprotty here will share his take, but literally, as he said, he was a brand new Mason, maybe a month into the craft.
We got our claws into him early.
We had another fella who was making his name known and run, and we talked about him. Actually, he's coming on later. We're doing a show later tonight with Right Worshipful Brother Don Kemble. And he said he knew Bert and I were kind of helping the district out and doing things. And he's like, you have to call this guy. And that's
He
all I
actually
gotta tell
knows
you.
what
Like,
he's doing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
he's going to be great. And
Yeah.
again, 1 month in, and I'm guessing it's because of, you know, the meeting that you guys had before. He already knew who you were before you were a Mason. I mean, that's the cool thing of meeting your brother.
Yeah, I think I showed a lot of enthusiasm right off the bat. As soon as I was initiated, I wanted to get involved in the lodge, and obviously, right into it, you can't do any work. You know, we didn't have too much socially at the time going on in the lodge, within the lodge, but we did like to travel. I know that our master at the time, worshipful brother Chris Wilson, really promoted us all getting out and traveling to the other lodges and building that community there. So I hopped into traveling right away. I mean, that was kind of the contribution at the time, is we had this traveling gavel competition. Let's see how many guys we can get out to another lodge for their official visit. So that was really it right off the bat, is I tried to travel as much as possible and meet people. Yeah, Right Worshipful Brother Don Kemble came to me and said, hey, these guys from another lodge in Aurora, they want to start a podcast. Do you know anything about that? And I thought to myself, you know, I don't know. My biggest pet peeve is when people don't really commit to things. You know, it's like they accept responsibility, but then don't follow through on it. And I didn't know at the time. I mean, podcast is a huge undertaking, as we've learned, and I'm sure you guys are aware now. Having how many episodes do you have? 60, give or take, I saw on there. But anyways, so I was hesitant, and I had a little bit of experience with recording programs. I used to play music and things in high school, so I had a little bit of experience. Never really bit off a podcast or anything, but met Gino at a district meeting.
Yeah.
And yeah, luckily we got along, and we met with Bert, I think a week or two later, and we had a first recording session, and luckily
we did awful too. Like,
yeah, it was terrible.
World's worst.
I always want to, every time I see that episode, I always want to delete it and say,
the first one's always awful. It just has to be.
Oh,
it's
terrible.
It's a rite of passage. It just has to be terrible. And no one ever wants to listen to it after they do it.
And you know what? That's our most popular episode, which makes it 10 times worse. So, but yeah, I mean, we really hit it off, and we all were very passionate about it. Really worked well together. Really got along, which is great, because when you're partnered up with someone blind, you have no idea how things are going to turn out. You know, so you know it worked out, and we're still sitting here today. We've worked on other ventures together. So you know, it was a perfect combination. So yeah, we're proud of it. I think we also came from extremely humble beginnings, because we started this project not because we wanted to be, you know, Masonry famous, but we really wanted to provide something just to our own district.
It's about communication,
and
right?
we didn't have the podcast online anywhere available to the public for a while. And we just had it available to our own district, and it was more of a news information source, really. That's how it started out. But luckily, we had some great support from some Grand Lodge representatives, and they said, you know, take this and go with it, run with it. You know, the word needs to be spread, and we need more of these formats out there. So luckily, we were supported from day one. So
I love it.
Yeah, that kind of merged into bringing it to public platforms, and having people all over the world listening to the first three knocks. So exciting stuff.
Yeah, that really changed. I mean, when we figured out how to get onto all the platforms, and man, it just kind of blew up from there even as well. We got our social media going. I mean, Steve's got a lot of skill set, but he's a brilliant marketer and social media savvy, and he really got us set up and running. So we got a lot of great guests on our show. We're proud of a lot of the episodes we did. We're maybe less proud of some of the earlier ones, like anyone would be. But I think you said it, Justin. Like, you got to start somewhere and go through your rite of passage. And I feel like we've done that and sort of earned our way up.
An observation that I have made, and I pointed this out in my last podcast, and I'll go ahead and point it out here also. The three of us have never had a conversation beyond email and Messenger. But here we are talking like people that have known each other for quite a while, and that's the power of the fraternity.
Absolutely.
Thousands of miles apart, and we're still united by that commonality of our fraternity.
That's one of the things I love again about this craft is I try to visit lodges of which I travel to different countries, and the few that I've been to are always warm welcome, like you've known each other for forever. You don't have that awkward moment. You just do the natural that anybody can do. Extend your hand and greet them, and wow, what a warm greeting you get back. And then just to know again, our fraternity is so worldwide that if you ever are stuck anywhere, there's always somebody that you know. You don't have to have known them to speak to them for years and days. They're just, their heart is in the right place, and they're there to help in any capacity that would mean. And again, that's so cool to know that we're just a small little drop in the pond, but the pond or the ocean is just so big and just bigger than us.
I'll tell you what I love about it, because I travel quite a bit for my work, and of course, in society and life, you're always kind of putting on a face and persona. You don't want to offend or come off as offensive, so you're cautious, and it's just a different way of socializing. But when you're around Freemasons like we are tonight, like you just mentioned, Justin, you can dispense with all of that, and it really doesn't matter what your profession is. Like, nobody really cares. I mean, it's a curiosity at best, but it's really unimportant. And the example I'd share is back in November, I had the good fortune of traveling to the Grand Lodge of Minnesota. I was in Minneapolis, St. Paul on business, and I kind of tied a lodge visit and an event that they had at the Grand Lodge of Minnesota. And I've never met these brothers. It's just like you and I tonight chatting for the first time, bunch of emails, phone calls, and we attended an event. We actually sponsored an event is how it played out. I had never been treated so well in my life by strangers. And I know it's because they were Freemasons and they were brothers, because the walls were already down, the hands were extended, and they wanted to bring me into their world and under the tent and show me everything that they're proud of in their jurisdiction. And it was a really cool experience. And I think that's what Freemasonry has to offer around the world. It doesn't matter if you're in Texas or up here in Canada or in Minnesota or in Cuba or in Europe. Like, it's the same topic everywhere.
Dennis could probably attest to this now that you're on. Like when he went to Mexico, he would visited some of the lodges in Mexico, and the way he was received is really what you would expect. Like from the outside looking in, like the lodge sent a car to pick him up, things like that. But the outside looking in, that's what you expect, right? Like so.
And this was on a Sunday. That Saturday I was visiting with some of those brothers, and I just said, hey, I want to come by tomorrow, and bam, they were there waiting for me with a sign, and it's like that's the way it works out in Freemasonry. That's how it should be.
Yeah, it's just proper. It's proper.
Yeah,
I mean, what a brilliant experience for you to know that you are safe, secure, and wanted. I mean, the folks want you around, and they want to bring you into their world. Like, it's such a beautiful part of our.
Yeah, and not only did they take me to the lodges, but they took me they were wanting to take me around town and all that kind of stuff. Anywhere I wanted to go, they were down to just spend time with me. It was awesome.
One of the questions I wanted to ask is, every jurisdiction is a little different. The as long as I've been a Mason, it's been like maybe 17, 18 years, there's always been kind of like this hand wringing about membership. Like there's like this worry about the numbers. Is that prevalent in your jurisdiction? Do you hear that conversation come up as much?
Yeah, it's a loud topic for sure. I mean, I'll give you a little context here for our jurisdiction to maybe set the stage for that topic. In the Grand Lodge of Canada in the province of Ontario, that's where we are geographically located. Our numbers have gone somewhere from, I'm going to say 67,000 down to 29,000 in the last 10 years, probably the right time jurisdiction for that. And of course, that rings the alarm bells and has our Grand Lodge quite concerned. And we sort of go through these waves where it's like time for a Masonic drive, and we're going to get a bunch of new brothers and fill our ranks, and which is all good, all important. But from my own perspective, what I would say is more important is that we focus on quality over quantity. And we've seen that just in our lodge as a small example. You know, we've done events where we've done friend-to-friend nights, et cetera, and we get 20 guys in, and 5 of them are interested, and then 3 apply, and then we end up with 1 that's fixed, sort of thing. And that guy is the guy we wanted. Like he's actually the one that's going to contribute, participate, bring value to the members of our lodge. And not just because he's making the green beans for dinner, like he's actually interested in the craft and wants to learn more. That's really what we're after. And I suspect you have the same kind of scenario in your jurisdiction as well.
Oh yeah, green beans every meal.
And even if you don't want them, you just got to have them. It's like one of those staples.
But as far as the membership conversation goes, yeah, it's been a concern for quite a while. And the approach or the mentality that Dennis and I have, and Masonic Improvement has had, is like what you said. Let's do quality over quantity. I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies in my pocket, right? Yeah. And that's kind of a mentality that wasn't popular at first, and it's growing here in Texas.
It definitely is.
I can't speak for other jurisdictions, but I know there's a lot of different, and I don't credit Masonic Improvement for any of it by any means, but I credit us as a whole, what you're doing, what we're doing, what the other podcasts are doing, because there seems to be a common theme behind a lot of these conversations that are taking place on these podcasts. And I think that's a reason that a lot of conversations that you just could not have at your lodge 20 years ago are accepted now, as far as like quality over quantity and other things like dues and stuff like that. You would never talk about that. It was what it was.
With our Grand Lodge in particular, I think it's not so much, we're just about at the flatline point in our grand jurisdiction, which is about 69,000, but that's little bitty for our big old state. But still, we're at a flatline point to where we're ready to start growing pretty soon. But it's the infrastructure that's killing us, because we have a lodge in every little town trying to support that lodge instead of getting together and really, able to support each other and our lodge. I think that's one of the issues we deal with. I don't know if it's the same where you guys are at. I just wanted to jump on and say that real quick.
Yeah, no, you know what? That's a great point, because I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. And I think one of our grandmasters recently has spoken of that point too, to say, we don't need to have what once upon a time was a lodge in every small town, because they no longer can sustain what they're doing for the costs that we have to support sometimes. And so is it pride? I don't want to be the one that sits at the master's chair to suggest to the 5 brethren that we can't make quorum here, that we need to shut down this 180-year-old building that's been serving its community for that long. Like, I get it, right? But at the same time, you got to look to kind of strengthen your community. And if that means that, especially these days, getting around on horse and buggy back in the day might have been difficult.
Yeah.
But now we all hop in these gas-powered and electric-powered cars, and to go to the next town is a 5-minute, jolt down the street. So I think we're better connected these days. I think we need to look at ourselves and say, what's the most important for the craft? And I think also, Justin, you talked about it, having what we all do collectively here to raise awareness in that good, positive sense for Masonry through podcasts, through blogs, through videos, through vlogs, whatever we're doing.
Being relevant, right?
Well, we're being relevant. I think we've turned that page just to say, hey, and this is not a knock on the experience of all the wonderful Grand Lodge officers and brethren that have come before us, but we're bringing that younger flair, if you will, that younger taste. We recognize what 30 and 40-year-olds, even young 20-some-odd-year-olds might want these days. And so instead of the the old boys club, if you want to call it that. We try, we don't innovate, we don't change tradition, we don't change those secrets, but how can we attract newer members that they just don't know how to ask to be a part of the event that we're hosting? So we open it to, again, a doors open event that the town runs. We show we're part of the town community, at the same time, not so secretive in the sense of, hey, come on in, the door's open.
Yeah.
And I think, when we do that, I think Grand Lodges across the world recognize, wait a minute, there is a platform here to be in the public eye that's not so negative. And it's just a matter of putting in the right mix of experience and newer blood, if you will, to bring forward what we're looking for with that new look. So again, I applaud all of us for the efforts we do. Grand Lodge didn't knock on our door and ask us to do this. We did it because in our heart, we wanted to be able to share the experience.
Well, brothers, I know we're all getting short on time. This is one of those many conversations that we have, and I'm sure you have these on your podcast too, that they could last 4 or 5 hours if time went.
Absolutely.
It feels this way.
Yeah.
Well, definitely appreciate all of you taking time out of your evening to come onto the show. Do y'all have any last words that you want to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, brethren, I just wanted to say thank you for inviting us on to your show. It's an honor to participate with you guys down in Texas. We are truly sorry we can't be there with you all at your Grand Lodge communication this upcoming week, but we wish you well. Much love from the north, and we plan on being there next year in 2024.
Nice.
Thanks again, brothers.
Y'all take care.
Have a good night. Thank you, guys.
You too.